Let's crack open the case file on the 1963 crime of the century. Today, we're putting on our detective hats to completely deconstruct this infamous heist, looking strictly through the lens of forensic evidence, police work, and the fatal mistakes that brought the whole thing down. We're talking about a brilliantly executed operation where a gang made off with millions without initially firing a single shot. But, as any seasoned investigator will tell you, there's really no such thing as a perfect crime.
So right out of the gate, we have to ask a wild question. How exactly did a tiny microscopic mistake and a simple game of Monopoly unravel months of absolutely brilliant planning? Seriously, how does a gang pull off a flawlessly timed military-style ambush on a moving train only to be taken down by family game night? To figure out how detectives eventually caught them, we need to walk the crime scene and see exactly how they set the trap.
Part 1. The perfect crime scene. All right, let's look at the initial evidence. It's the pitch-black night of August 8, 1963 at Sears Crossing, and the gang's mechanical genius is on full display. To stop a massive Glasgow to London Royal Mail train without using any weapons, mastermind Bruce Reynolds and his crew literally just rigged the railway signals. It's incredibly simple, really. Step 1, stuff a glove over the green signal light. Step 2, hook up a portable battery to light up the red signal. When the train inevitably stopped and a worker hopped out to use the trackside telephone, well, the lines were already cut. A perfectly designed trap. But as you might expect, things didn't go exactly to plan. The gang actually brought along their own retired railway driver to move the train to their designated unloading spot. The problem? He'd never operated this newer type of engine, and he completely froze at the controls. This forced the gang to pivot, and they ended up violently assaulting the real driver, 58-year-old Jack Mills, striking him with an iron rod. They made the concussed, bleeding driver move the train exactly 1 kilometer down the track to Bridego Bridge, leaving the rest of the carriages and the totally clueless postal staff inside completely behind. Part 2. The inside job. Now, as investigators, we are always hunting for motive and opportunity, and the evidence here screams inside job. Look at this comparison. A mysterious senior security officer tipped the gang off that thanks to a bank holiday weekend, 10 times the normal amount of cash would be riding in a highly vulnerable reserve carriage. Normally, a high-value package carriage held about 300,000 pounds and was equipped with active alarms. But because of the holiday surge, the Royal Mail used this specific reserve carriage holding 3 million pounds, and its alarms were totally busted. The gang knew exactly when and exactly where to strike. Part 3. The 15-minute heist. Once that train was parked over the bridge with a truck waiting down below, the execution was just military-grade precision. In precisely 15 minutes, the gang formed a human chain, literally tossing 120 heavy mailbags down the embankment, one by one, right into the waiting truck. They actually left 8 bags behind for the simple reason that their strict 15-minute timer ran out. Let's put that into perspective. That haul weighed a staggering 2.5 tons and contained roughly 2.5 million pounds. To give you a modern equivalent, that's nearly 3.9 billion today. They loaded 2.5 tons of untraceable notes into a truck in the dead of night and just vanished. Looking at it strictly from the detective's point of view, the physical robbery itself was incredibly clean. But the getaway, well, that's where they handed police the keys to the entire case. Part 4. The 50-kilometer radius clue. You see, every perfect crime has a flaw, and this entire investigation pivots on one arrogant warning given to the train staff. The robbers told them, "Do not try to move for 30 minutes, or you will lose your life." By giving them that exact 30-minute window, the gang accidentally handed Scotland Yard a massive mathematical gift. Think about it. Why exactly 30 minutes? Because that's the exact head start the gang needed to safely drive to their hideout. Detectives simply calculated how far a heavy truck could drive in half an hour, drew a 50-kilometer circle around the bridge on a map, and boom, the manhunt was instantly localized. And the gang quickly realized this. Listening in on police VHF radios back at their hideout, Leather Slade Farm, which was just 43 kilometers away, they heard the cops closing in on that exact radius. This forced them to abandon their master plan. The original, highly disciplined strategy was to lay low, quietly divide the cash, and slip away unnoticed on Sunday. Instead, panic set in. The discipline shattered. They scrambled to split the money on Thursday so they could run by Friday. And panic, as any good detective knows, is exactly what breeds mistakes. Part 5. Monopoly and fingerprints. So the forensic climax of this whole explainer kicks off with a tip.
A hefty 10,000-pound reward got a local neighbor talking about some strange activity at Leather Slade Farm, a place the gang had rented a few months prior. Now, the gang had actually paid a guy to burn the property to the ground to erase all the evidence. But he took the money and ran. So when Scotland Yard finally raided the farm, they found a gold mine, abandoned mailbags, a hastily painted yellow truck, and a house that had been wiped down thoroughly, but not perfectly. They tried to cover their tracks, but they missed one crucial thing.
Amidst all those wiped surfaces, detectives stumbled upon the ultimate smoking gun, an intact Monopoly board, and it was absolutely covered in fingerprints. Why? Because during those few hours of celebration before the panic fully set in, the gang had unwound by playing a game of Monopoly, using the actual stolen cash. I mean, the sheer hubris of playing a board game with millions in stolen money was their literal undoing. The cardboard surface and the little game pieces were absolute magnets for perfectly preserved fingerprints.
And because Mastermind Bruce Reynolds had recruited known offenders with existing criminal records, Scotland Yard already had their prints on file. It was a simple match. The prints lifted from that Monopoly board were cross-referenced, identities were instantly confirmed, and within days, authorities were rounding up the gang. It was an absolute triumph of forensic science over criminal planning, leading straight to the arrest and 30-year sentencing of 14 of the 16 gang members.
Finally, Part 6, The Unsolved Mysteries. Now, even with 14 convictions in the bag, a detective's work is never really done when you still have ghosts in the wind. Most of the gang fell because of their own arrogance, sure, but the panicked replacement driver and that brilliant Royal Mail insider who orchestrated the entire thing, they simply vanished into history, completely shielded by the gang's strict code of silence. And we absolutely have to remember the human cost here. Driver Jack Mills never fully recovered from that blow to the head. He never went back to work, and he tragically passed away 7 years later from trauma complications. For all its clean planning, this heist was fundamentally violent. Which leaves us with this haunting final thought as we close the file. How did the most important piece of the greatest puzzle in British history completely escape justice? We have the fingerprints, we have the forensic timeline, and yes, we have the Monopoly board. But that shadowy insider, the one who knew about the broken alarms, the bank holiday cash surge, the person who set this entire historic crime into motion, remains a total ghost. It really makes you wonder, right? Are the most successful criminals the ones whose faces get plastered all over the headlines? Or the ones who provide the tip and then quietly fade into the background forever?